go to our main man, Jeff Kerr, joining the show here on Birds 365 on this Monday morning. Jeff, how you doing on this Monday, brother? We appreciate you being here. How was your weekend?
Good. I'll say this. I'm not a WWE fan, but I do watch stuff like the Elimination Chamber. Entertaining stuff, McMullen.
Yeah, I'm telling you, when they click, there's nothing better. Now, when they're not clicking, it can be embarrassing to be a wrestling fan. But when they're clicking, and it's always, I can always tell by my wife because, if I'm watching something, she'll walk by and shake her head like, what are you doing, dude? But, when Dwayne's out there, when Dwayne Johnson's out there, The Rock, when John Cena's out there, because they've become such big stars in Hollywood, then she's interested. Then she'll sit down and watch. So, yeah, when you have that sort of star power and they hit the home run with the storyline, yeah, it can be
Mrs.
special.
McMullen is our barometer for entertaining. I love it. I love it.
Last year at the WrestleMania party, I go to my buddy's WrestleMania party every year, and I always like to kick the hornet's nest. When they were doing the whole finish the story with Cody Rhodes, I'm like, finish the scripted story.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a big Cody Rhodes guy.
I'm not either.
I think
he has a punchable face. He really does.
Yeah,
was Jody the Cody Rhodes guy on the show? He was, right?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No, Jody loved Cody. Jody loved Cody.
I thought.
Yeah, Cody's insufferable. But I'm a grown man, so I generally don't like baby faces. But I think everybody knows who The Rock is in the world now. One of the most famous people in the world. And John Cena's become a big star himself in Hollywood. So they've kind of transcended pro wrestling. And when they come back, because they don't have to come back, but they love the industry. And they love the industry because when stuff like that happens, it's electric.
It's been good to them too.
Yeah, it's been very good to them.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly there, Jeff.
Yeah. And it says something because Dave Bautista is also former wrestler's become a big star in Hollywood. So, when you're doing stuff, maybe that's the way to get some practice, get some live practice reps, as they say. Yeah.
What do you think Vic Fangio would have thought of John Cena's heel turn on?
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe I'll talk to Vic about wrestling. There's a lot of NFL people who are big. Lane Johnson.
Vic, a wrestling guy, I would not.
I don't know. Yeah. I've never asked. I was talking about Mauro Jomo. He's got a belt. He's got a Steve Austin jacket up in his locker. A lot of guys like Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson did the thing with when they were here for WrestleMania. And Lane would be, he would be the biggest, I would say, wrestling fan.
I still miss Fletch because him and I would talk
about.
Fletch
was a big wrestling fan.
Yeah, he was a big wrestling guy.
Benny Curry, I should mention. Benny Curry loves pro wrestling.
Yeah, Fletch and I would talk about that. We talk about racing. Now I got Jordan Davis to talk about racing, so we're all good there. But yeah, Fletch, man, you can talk to him about anything. He'd be like, "Oh, did you see this? See this? Yeah, I saw it."
And they love when they bring the belt around. They all love when they bring the belt around. And they generally give. There might be something going on because of Tony Khan, because the NFL. WWE pretty much gives championship belts to whoever wins a major championship. It could be NHL, it could be NBA, Major League. They always give, and they even have they have legacy belts, they call them, where you can buy, if you're a Phillies fan, you could buy a Phillies belt. If you're a Flyers fan, you could buy a Flyers belt. If there are any Sixers fans left, you can buy a Sixers belt. And you can buy an Eagles belt. However, they used to give them to them like in the locker room after, and they didn't do that this year. And I'm wondering if Tony nixed that as an NFL owner, saying, hey, come on, we can't do that. But I don't know if that's the case.
John, not going too far off tangent here, but do you think AEW helped the WWE get better?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no question. But, now Tony's screwed. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't roll out Dwayne Johnson and John Cena. And then Travis Scott is there for nothing, for no reason other than he's a big star, sort of like Dennis Rodman back in the day. Yeah, you can't compete with that.
I tell people all the time, and look, I know I work for a rival network, but if you are a WWE fan, I tell everybody, get Peacock. Just get it. You're going to get all that stuff and not pay that price.
Yeah, Peacock's not bad too. They have some good original stuff. Yeah, and it pays for itself if you're a wrestling fan.
Yeah, I get guys in the bowling alley all fired up Monday night because I have a Netflix subscription. So and now they got smart TVs in there. So I'm like, you guys can put on Raw. Like, it's the password.
You got to be careful. Netflix is cutting down, man. You can't.
So is Disney. I have 4 TVs subscribed to Disney Plus in my household. They're like, this isn't the household TV. I'm like, it's the same household.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all trying to clamor as much money out of everybody as they possibly can.
Well, that's their own fault because they decided way before they needed to that streaming was the future, and now they're paying for it.
Yeah, they are paying for it. And by the way, that's NFL related because it's just streaming is just not. People want to watch shit on television. Now, I do think it is changing because as older people age out, unfortunately, younger people do tend to shift more toward streaming. But boy, man, the streaming numbers are not great compared to the regular linear TV.
I have an editor that gets really upset with me because we're watching NFL games on Sundays and I'm like 3 minutes ahead. I said, that's your fault. That ain't my fault.
Yeah.
I always said, if you want to watch everything on delay, go for streaming.
See, it's interesting because, my dad is obviously older and he's a cable guy. This year, he started watching the Eagles games on streaming because the one TV in his house that he would stream a game was way ahead of the TV that was on cable. And he wanted to watch on cable, but he liked to be as close to the real time as possible. So he started watching on that TV. I'm like, I thought it was the other way around. I thought streaming was behind, but on his house, it was streaming was ahead. So it's interesting.
See, I'm fortunate where I live. I'm not in the Comcast, Time Warner conglomerate. I have a really small cable company. It's very local, but they're very good. It's a little pricey, but they're very good. And I always say, if I ever would move out of this area, I'd be like, what am I going to do? Like this cable company's not going to be here. I'm going to have to join the Comcast conglomerate.
I also think streaming now is much higher quality if you have the right TV and everything up to speed of where it should be. I think the quality is now much better. So that factors in, but it all depends on the equipment. It depends on everything.
It'll cost you a few G's, but once you do it.
Hey, Zander, you probably know this. Did you know there's a Wi-Fi 7?
No, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. I'm getting I bought a new router and they're like, well, you want Wi-Fi 7. I'm like, what do I have? 4 or 5? They're like 5. I'm like,
yeah.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, I don't that to me is like the Johnson rod at the car place. Oh, you need a new Johnson rod.
Yeah,
you need 7. Yeah, I need Wi-Fi 7. Oh, yeah.
They were telling me that for years. All I tell them is I need the best Wi-Fi you got. And every time I still got issues. So I'm not buying any of it.
I tell these guys all the time, just talk to me like I'm 5 and we'll be okay.
Yeah. Oh, you need this, you need that. You don't, especially if your wife or significant other or somebody's there, you got to pretend like you're not the dumbest person in the world. Oh yeah, I need a new Johnson rod. So yeah. Anyway.
All right, Jeff, let me ask you about something that happened in the NFC East. We'll dive into the combine, some of the Eagles news, Jordan Davis, all those things. But I do want to start with Deebo Samuel to the NFC East. Your initial reaction to that move. I think everybody's going to get aggressive now, Jeff. The Eagles are at the top of the mountain, and everybody's climbing to try and join them at the mountaintop. Your thoughts on the Commanders making the move, trading for Deebo Samuel, your initial reaction?
I'm very intrigued by the move. I think that's a good piece for their offense. I think what Cliff Kingsbury does with that offense is going to help. But a word of caution to Commanders fans. Deebo Samuel was not good last year.
He was not. That's what I said, man.
He was terrible. He was not good. You act like you heisted the 49ers for a 5th-round pick. I'm like, no, that's honestly, he probably was worth less than that because he's just not that good anymore. And I'm not saying he can't be good next year, but you're basically getting rid of – the 49ers got rid of some trash that they just didn't want. And they're not paying the guy, $25 million a year to pretty much average 54 yards a game. that ain't good enough. And I think the 49ers came out pretty good in that deal. It could work for the Commanders. I think it will, but don't expect the Deebo Samuel from 2019 or 2021 or 2022.
Yeah, I said that's what I said. If this were Deebo from 2021, I might be concerned, but this is not the same player. Now, I don't know if there was some kind of injury or something, but this was not the same player. And maybe there can be a bounce back, but the guy who was out there at the end of last season wasn't very good. Period. I mean,
it's garbage.
I'm not going to go garbage, but I'm going to go below average. It just wasn't that good. And I think that's one of the reasons San Francisco is like, all right, yeah, we'll, and remember, they're not giving Washington money. They're giving them the contract. So for a lot of people, and I brought this up, it's the first Penn State reference of the day for Eagles fans. How can Howie give up a 3rd round pick for Jahan Dotson and Deebo only gets a 5th round pick? I'm like, Jahan's on a rookie deal versus a guy making all the money Deebo Samuel is. We got to elevate this conversation.
That 3rd round pick seemed worth it in the playoffs.
Super Bowl.
Yeah, it did.
And they got something back too. It's not just the Eagles got a draft.
It was a swap, right? To a fifth. Yeah, I ate a little bit of crow because I was kind of hard on Jahan earlier in the year, and he just didn't get the ball enough.
I think he can play. I think he can play, but I don't think he's a top 2 receiver in the league. I don't think he should have been the 16th pick in the draft, but compared to Quez Watkins and some of the other stuff they rolled out at 3rd receiver, I think the Eagles got an upgrade in Jahan Dotson. Now, the problem is, and I think the legitimate criticism is, they don't use their 3rd receiver. And if you don't use your 3rd receiver, why are you giving up what they gave up? That part I can entertain at least a little bit. But
I thought they overpaid, but I thought they had to overpay.
Yeah. But yeah, and he's very cost effective on the rookie deal for the most part. And they got one more year of that. And then you start talking about the 5th year option, which obviously they're not going to pick up. But yeah, I
you could bring him back.
Yeah, of course. We were talking about Jordan Davis. I wouldn't pick up the 5th year option on Jordan Davis, but that doesn't mean you can't bring him back.
Exactly. And look, I will say this. At least the 5th year option for Jordan Davis isn't too egregious. Like I think you could pay that. What was it? 12 million?
12.9.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it because you're already paying a bunch of people, but I'm not going to be against it.
Yeah, I saw the number and I wasn't too dissuaded. And I'm not out on Jordan Davis, but I'm not the biggest fan of Jordan Davis. I thought at 13 million, keep the band together for another year. But
that's another thing. There's no way they're letting him play out his contract. Something's going to get done. Something's going to get done. So, could they use it as a placeholder? Yes, but something's going to get done. I would not use it as a placeholder. It's a run stopper. I'm not paying a run stopper 13 million.
No, I'm not either. But I do think Jordan Davis will be on this team past this season.
Yeah, but John, with that line of thinking, I mean, can't you say the same? Like, I'm not paying a run stuffer 13. Well, I'm not using the 13th pick to draft a run stuffer. That's kind of what
that's fair. So. And hey, I said it the night of the draft. That's a fair criticism.
But didn't they already tell us though that they value that more than maybe you or I? I'm with you. I wouldn't either, John. But the Eagles kind of showed that they maybe would be willing to. That's where I'm wondering if.
Well, I think they expected more. Okay. Not what other people expected, like my buddy Paul Domowitz, who I love, but he's talking about him moving outside because of his athleticism. This guy ain't moving outside. But I think the Eagles were hoping to get more of that interior push, like Haloti Ngata, that type of player in his prime. And we haven't seen that. We did see it a little bit in the playoffs. He was pretty good. But the way the NFL's going, here's my problem, guys. Everybody's putting these NASCAR packages on obvious passing downs. Everybody. You got 4 pass rushers. You don't even have defensive tackles on a lot of teams out there on 3rd and long, 3rd and even 7 or 8. obvious passing situations. So it's limited from that standpoint, just the way the league is going. Even if Jordan Davis turns into a good interior pass rusher on first and second down, he's coming off the field on third down because you want 4 guys who can get after it. And that's everybody. That's not just the Eagles.
And there's nothing wrong with that either.
No, it's the way it's going. But you have all these undersized bodies rushing the passer inside, and I think the Eagles are going that way as well. Moro Jomo played more than Jordan Davis last year.
And he's better pass rusher than Jordan Davis.
Yeah, that's why.
And Jordan had a great NFC Championship and Super Bowl getting to the quarterback.
Yeah, but he did.
If the Eagles could get that, like not that level of production, but consistent level of production for a 17-game season, yeah, I probably pay Jordan Davis.
My point with that is even when he did it in the play, he's not playing on third down.
Yeah,
he's not playing on third and long.
I think the NFC Championship sack was on first down, and I think I'm trying to remember the Super Bowl. Was it second down he got his sack or half sack? I can't
I'd
remember.
have to go back. But
let me ask you about this. What would be the bigger question inside the Eagles organization right now? Would it be, are we willing to pay that or work a deal for that type of a player? Or is it, are we expecting Jordan Davis to be more than he was in the first 3 years of his career? Meaning, if we lose Milton, can he be more of a traditional defensive tackle? Or is that the question? Or is the question, do we value what he does enough to pay this money?
In my eyes, man, this is where it gets really tough because I don't think he's ever going to be a Milton Williams type player. But I think he could be a huge part of this defense. Well, I still think you're going to have to replenish somewhere in there. And maybe it's more Jomo internally, but if you're going to keep Jordan Davis around, this is where I think getting an edge rusher is a big deal, whether it's whoever. Myles Garrett.
Get Myles Garrett.
Yeah, Myles Garrett. Yeah.
That becomes more difficult to pay 13, but who knows?
Yeah, John, what my wild card is, and I have to look to see if it would be a fit for Fangio, but he gets injured a lot. Chase Young, I still would take a flyer on that guy.
Yeah, I know.
I mentioned him earlier in the offseason draft. I got grilled. Let me tell you, I got grilled.
If you're looking to be smart with your money and try to get bang for your buck like Zack Baun, that might be the guy.
I'll tell you, and we talk. I think the first guy, and boy, you talk about. There's a lot of over there. Yeah, and I was just looking him up. That's the first guy, and it's overblown. You know what the scouting combine, Jeff. So and so met with the Eagles. So
yeah, big deal. Zander Krause met with the Eagles.
Exactly, but he's a big 6'6", 300, almost the exact same size as Jordan Davis. Not the same type of prospect Jordan was coming out, but you can already see how his contingencies bubble up. All right, if I'm not going to have this guy, I need to find some other 6'5", 340-pound guy. He's always got, again, plan B, plan C, plan D, and he's already working on them. And that's where somebody like that might fit in down the road if you are going to lose Jordan Davis at some point. Always working ahead.
I mean, that's what my free agency 5 moves the Eagles should do in free agency or this offseason is coming out tomorrow. And my last one was you might need to be looking for a long-term replacement for Dallas Goedert, and it might be in this draft.
Yeah, I've been talking about that, because of the eerie similarities to the 2018 draft after they won the Super Bowl, where that was the Lamar Jackson draft, and the Eagles traded out of 32. They traded down, then they traded back up to get Dallas Goedert at tight end. And they had Zach Ertz at the time. And Zach Ertz was 2 years younger, basically, at that point than Dallas Goedert is now.
Yeah, and Goddard's going to be, what, 30? Is he 30 now?
Yeah, he's either 30 or about to turn 30.
Yeah, and it's my whole philosophy. I know the Eagles try to disprove it as much as they can, but you can't pay everybody.
Yeah, and he turned 30 on January 3rd, so he's already 30. Yeah, they're going to get a tight end. This is a good tight end draft. They're going to get a tight end somewhere in this draft, and it might be the second round.
So I was laughing because I had couple people tell me the Eagles were meeting with tight ends. I'm like, well, I hope they're meeting with tight ends at the combine. I really hope they're talking to the Tyler Warrens and the Colton Lovelands of the world, and there's more than them, by the way.
But for those people who say they're going to move on from Dallas Goedert right away,
no,
it's possible because of his contract. But boy, he played well when he came back.
Yeah, he did. He was huge in the play. Now, I would keep Dallas this year. I would just.
So would I.
It'd be like a Zack Goedert thing. You just keep him around. He's part of the core, and then you make that decision when you got to make that decision.
Yeah.
By the way, John, would you keep Slay?
Boy, that's a tough one.
I think I would.
I found that's one of mine. Find a way to keep him around.
I think you got it. I mean, here's my problem with Slay, and I was almost calling for Slay to be gone last year. All right. What is the alternative? Because now you're at the mountaintop. You're not climbing anymore. You have to sustain the excellence that you set last season. What's your alternative? Are you going to pay Isaiah Rodgers and expect the same level of production on the outside? Are you going to put the faith in Keely Ringo and hope that he can be? Are you going to sign a free agent? I think that's unlikely. Are you going to draft someone in the first couple of rounds? I think that's unlikely with the way the draft went last year. I think the only alternative that gives you a good replacement or a comparable level of talent compared to last year is to bring Slay back and then probably have him with another good backup, like I guess it could be Ringo or maybe Rodgers returns, something like that. I think Slay coming back makes the most sense here.
And my thing is, too, he's a captain of this team. He's well respected on the defense. Quinyon Mitchell loves him. Cooper DeJean loves him. Like he's a leader. You know,
right.
People don't view him as the leader that they want, but he's a leader on this team. And I think he deserves to have his career end here. Like, I don't want to see end in Detroit or Ball. And I know Detroit is giving him a lot, and he'd still be competing for a Super Bowl, but he wants one more year. I know he probably doesn't think it'll be here, but I'm kind of hoping it is.
Boy, I'm torn on this one because I love Slay personally. I'm with you. I don't think people understand. I always tell the Devin Allen story. When Devin was here and nobody knew him, he just came in. He's trying to make the transition from track back to football. And he was running at the Penn Relays, and Slay got a bunch of teammates together to go support this kid they barely even knew because he's a member of the team, trying to, bring him into the team, ingratiate him to the team. He's a great leader. He's a great person. But how he, you got to make difficult decisions. This is a 35-year-old cornerback. History tells you what that is.
We'll be 35 on January 1st. But yes.
Yeah.
They're in the playoffs next season. Thank you. I'll say this: if he comes back, he's got to be in Stephon Gilmore mode, and by that I mean 1 year. I think Gilmore signed for $8 million. So say the cap went up, so maybe 1 year, $10 million. If he's willing to do that, yeah, run it back. But if he still wants Slay money, if he wants 15, 16, 17.
Yeah, can't do that.
Yeah, same player. And if you designate him as a post-June 1st cut, I think you save $4.8 million on the cap. Whereas super structure, it really doesn't affect it either way. That's what I'm saying. Well, maybe he will take. We'll see though.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm very high on Keely Ringo. So, and how he keeps saying we got to play young players. Throw them in the deep end of the pool. Worked last year, maybe it works again this year. He's been here. Worked with Quinyon and Cooper DeJean, and they weren't even here. Now they're higher level prospects, obviously, but Vic will figure it out.
John, he's
going to get thrown into the pool, though, because Slay's not going to play 100% of the snaps. Here's the thing, though. When Slay's on the field, he still played pretty damn good last year.
He did. I know he did.
That's the one thing I struggle with, John, is do you get rid of him, and then you hope Keely can be great full-time?
It's not necessarily hope. You're evaluating. You drafted him. You brought him up. Vic talked about Jeff probably remembers this when he talked about guys who are really good on special teams, that tend to be really good on defense. And he was really good on special teams. and they're ready to take that step up. That's what he's there for, man.
I wrote last year because we were looking for content in February, obviously with the collapse. I put out a positive article. 5 players that actually played well during the collapse last year. Kelee Ringo was number 1.
Yeah, I love him as a prospect, and that's the evaluation standpoint. But Howie said to everybody out in Indianapolis who was listening, we got to play young players because we got to pay so many of our stars. So there are places where we have to play young players, and they were able to do that successfully last year. So I don't think they're going to go away from that mindset. Like if you have to, we keep talking about, if you're going to pay Jordan Davis $13 million, if you're going to go out and get Myles Garrett, if you're going to do all these things,
you got to pay Zack Baun.
You got to pay Zack Baun, and you need a Kelee Ringo to step up and play as a young player. And maybe you sign Isaiah Rodgers as the safety net.
See, this is where I'm curious if Mekhi Becton comes back or not. Because I would personally bring him back, but you have a contingency plan. You don't need to bring him back.
No, you don't need to. You don't need to.
It's not like Zack Baun.
Zach's going to be interesting because they want him back, but, does he want to bet on himself? And if he does want to bet on himself and he's hell-bent on getting to March 12th, he probably will make more than the Eagles want.
The problem with the Eagles is you got Dean with his injury, with his patella tendon. Burks is a free agent, and do you trust Trotter? He might be part of the young players. We got to play the young players.
Yeah, well, I know they trust Vic, so.
And Vic likes Trotter.
If Vic likes the player, they're going to trust Vic Fangio. And he's earned that trust, by the way. I'm
going to say this, too, about Trotter. He was way better than I initially thought he was going to be.
Well, he wasn't Zack Baun good.
No, but he held his own.
I will rip Howie on the show. I've said it. If they do not get Zack Baun back, he has made it clear that this is the number one priority. Get it done. No,
pay him. Pay the man. He is that guy you pay no matter what. And they
Josh, I would want Milton Williams back, but I get it if they can't bring him back. Josh Sweat, even everybody else, I can give him a pass. Not Zack Baun.
I know it was over 2 decades ago. This franchise just does not pay linebackers, and I'll still remember as a kid being absolutely furious when they did not pay Jeremiah Trotter.
It's interesting because the 2 positions I mentioned this last week, might have mentioned it with you, Jim, is the 2 positions they historically devalue: running back and linebacker. Their best offensive player, their most impactful offensive player was a running back. Their best defensive player, their most impactful defensive player was a linebacker.
Funny how that works. Oh, and they were all pros last year.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, if you get a good player, just pay the good player, no matter where, and figure everything else out.
Like, would we ever talk about letting Jalen Carter leave no matter what? No, we wouldn't. We would never leave. I mean, if you have a great player and he was a big part of a team that won you the Super Bowl and he's still in prime age, I think it's a no-brainer on Zack Baun. But I get the business side of it. It's going to be more complex.
I get the business side of it too, but I agree with you, Zander. To me, it's a no-brainer. I think everybody here on this show, in the chat room, I think everybody wants to see Zack Baun back in an Eagles uniform.
But do they want to see him back? Do they want to see him back? Here's where I waver a little bit. Roquan, I believe, is number 1.
And Roquan's a stud.
He is. And I think he's at $20 million. And Fred Warner's just under $20 million. If he's going over those 2 guys, I don't know. See, Zander's check. So you can't say at all costs.
See, I'm a jerk.
Yeah, I guess that's fair, John.
I would pay him. Because I think you're paying one of those free agents that money, whether it's Milton, whether it's Josh, whether it's Zack. And I think you need to pay Zack.
I don't think he's going to get Roquan Fred money.
I don't think he is either.
See, if I'm a GM of another team, I'd say, look, I do want you, but you've only been good 1 year under this guy. We're not paying you that money.
Right.
Yeah,
I think other teams are gonna
Vic's
have a
not
different-
coming with them, but there's a lot of dumb teams out there.
I know there is.
And
Like
they
here's the
just-
thing. Like we compare him to Roquan and Fred, and those are great players. And to be honest, I love Zach Baun. I don't really think he's on their level. I think Roquan Smith or Fred Warner could sign to any team in the league, and you'd be getting an all-pro linebacker.
Absolutely.
Can we stay the same about Zach Baun? I don't think we can yet,
Yeah.
especially with only 1 year.
Roquan has done it under Vic, Mike McDonald,
Yeah.
and now Zach Orr.
Exactly. You know what that player is going to be. A bad organization can look at that guy and say, I know we're getting an all-pro linebacker. I don't think they can say the same yet on Zach Baun. Now, maybe they project they will, but I don't think they can.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing, right? And look, as much as we love Trotter in Philadelphia, senior, he could only play under Jim Johnson. He could. Like, he sucked in Washington. He just wasn't the player that they paid for.
Yeah.
And I think
Well, I don't, with all due respect to Jeremiah Trotter Sr., because he was the last all-pro linebacker the Eagles had before Zach Baun. The game is different, So part of it is that. But from a well-rounded standpoint, like Zach Baun is so much better. Now,
yeah, but like you said, the game's a lot different.
yeah, it's a completely different game. But, you needed big bodies. You needed physical players. Now you need guys who can play in space. And Zach Baun was just off the charts.
I mean, if you need to convince yourself why Zach Baun needs to be in Philadelphia, just watch Super Bowl 59. Just watch his pick off Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. I mean, and he did that. You can watch week 1 against Green Bay in Brazil.
Yeah.
He did it every week.
Yeah, it was incredible. Like, it's funny. When I was talking to Bill Cowher a couple weeks before the Super Bowl, he was like, Jalen Carter should be Defensive Player of the Year. And I said, Zach Baun's a finalist. He said, well, why don't we give them both Defensive Player of the Year? And then he's,
Were you at the Baltimore preseason game, Jeff?
I was, yeah. Remember that was when I used the back way to get in.
Oh yeah. We'll get in the Baltimore parking tangent. Awful situation down there. But boy, he was awful in that game. To the point, I don't know if you remember, but we're all sitting there going, "This guy's playing like this guy's a starting linebacker."
Yeah,
Football's such an interesting sport.
I believe you said it right to me. You're like, Jeff, this guy's starting. I'm like, I guess.
It was bad. It was bad. Which tells you what preseason football means.
Yeah, it means nothing.
Yeah,
Preseason football.
But by the way, I know the I'm going off on a tangent here. You guys saw the story about the Packers, about them basically getting rid of full season ticket holders who were like selling like the majority of their tickets.
Yeah, I saw that. Yep.
And apparently, one of the local articles had they're even counting preseason games. I'm like, that's a joke.
Yeah,
Absolute joke.
That's bad.
The fact you are charging an individual $80 to watch that slop is an absolute crime against humanity. It really is.
I'm with you 100%. I wish they would just ban preseason football.
Bro, I think they should just make it free. I mean, just make it free. Let people walk in. I mean,
for $10 even, like treat it like a training.
$10, right? Something like that for the Autism Foundation. I think that would be cool. But I think
the Eagles would do that. I really do, even though it's lost revenue.
There's not much I can say with conviction 100%, but yeah, the NFL ain't giving away anything.
No. Yeah, this is going to be the NFL's counterpoint to getting rid of the preseason. 18 regular season games, 20 regular season games. Yeah, there goes your preseason.
Yeah, they're not giving away anything free. The Eagles won't even give away their one. When the Eagles moved from training camp back to NovaCare, if you remember, they used to have 2 open practices.
They used to have 2 of them. Yeah.
Now they've scaled that back down to 1. They still charge. Whatever it is, it's $10. It's for charity, but still, I mean, you used to be able to go watch practice for free in the old days. I used to cover the Cheese League in Wisconsin. You could watch 4 teams whenever you wanted.
People don't understand this, and there is a generation like people my age that do. You became an Eagles fan because training camp was in Lehigh and you could watch every single practice and get the actual access. Not, oh, it's on TV. Oh, I get to go to flight night, or I get to go to the one open practice a year. No, it was you got to go every day and watch 2-a-days for nothing. It was awesome.
Yeah. It was.
It's a
Was
different league now, though, man. Everybody's
Yeah,
making more money.
As someone who played football, I loved watching those guys. I loved watching. I remember.
You go back to Westchester, man.
Yep.
You could see Mike Quick at the Rats in Westchester. It was a far different time.
I used to see a couple of the guys I idolized growing up at Crossroads Pizza in Lehigh.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah. They were almost normal people. I'm joking.
I mean, they are pretty.
You're joking, but you're.
I'm joking. No, they are normal.
The stardom now, the
people
money,
don't
everything
get,
about it is they're so much bigger now.
Don't get nearly as close as they could back in those days, which is kind of sad. But
it sucks, because the fans only see them through the social media lens, and the players only see the fans through the social media lens. Now, you don't get that interaction anymore.
That's a great point.
You could show up at Duffers every night and wait for Nick Sirianni to show up. But I wouldn't.
Duffers? What's Duffers? The place in Wildwood?
No, Haddon Township.
No.
My favorite was when the story broke about where Saquon Barkley bought his house, and I'm just saying that's not his house.
Well, don't. Yeah, I shouldn't even have said that. Yeah, I tend not to say where players live.
Yeah, I don't blame you for that, especially when you hear about what's his name, Dan Campbell, getting booted out of his home because they lost an NFC title game last year. That was terrible. But no, we anyway. All right, Jeff. What real quick, last one for you from me. The combines have concluded. We talked about a couple of players.
Did you watch the combine?
I watched on Thursday and Friday. I had too much going on. Yeah, it was our second weekend off. So I have so much stuff going on the weekends to try and catch up from the season. So I didn't catch them yesterday. I just watched the highlights on NFL's YouTube.
I went and saw my dad this weekend. He had a stressful, eventful weekend. I'll leave it at that. But he needed needed time for his son. And what we like to do for about 4 hours every combine, it's probably the only time we ever watch a combine, is we hate watch it. And it's more of, what a bunch of idiots. This is so stupid. How can Rich Eisen talk about this? How can Daniel Jeremiah talk about this? How can you judge a player through these drills? It's completely stupid.
Don't hate the player, hate the game, Jeff, because
the game is stupid. Yeah. You know what? The scouting combine is why I tell people the NFL can be a joke. Everything has to be an event.
Yeah, but
we can get rid of
it. It is not important, but if people like it.
The important part of the combine to me is Tuesday and Wednesday when everybody talks.
Yeah, well, talking. Yeah, I said the interviews are the biggest. The biggest part is medicals. That's the biggest part by far.
You don't even see anything about that.
Yeah,
I was laughing when the whole stories were coming out with Abdul. I'm
yeah.
I think everybody in the inner circle knew that one.
The stress reaction. Abdul Carter. We'll see how that shakes out in the conversation for being number one overall. I still think somebody's going to take Cam Ward number one, but we'll see. This is a terrible quarterback draft, by the way, Jeff.
John, did you ever get into a fight with anybody at a Starbucks? Do you go to a Starbucks?
I'm not. I'm more of a man of the people Dunkin' Donuts guy.
Yeah, baby.
Starbucks. I'm not a big Starbucks fan.
I'm not either.
The coffee. But no, first of all, I hate media feuds. I think they're stupid.
Yeah, they really are stupid.
I really, so you're never going to see me in a media feud. What is the point?
I like too many people to get into a media.
Oh yeah, you're a people person. Now I can get fights with people, but it's not because of media. But you're talking about Jordan Schultz and Ian Rappaport. It's all right, settle down, guys. Who gives a shit?
It's like, guys, calm down. You're probably both right.
It's funny that it did happen at Starbucks because and then a bunch of people figured out that Jordan is Howard Schultz's kid.
When did I thought everybody knew that.
I thought everybody knew it too. So, you know.
Also, Jordan has like a foot on Ian.
Does he? I've never met Jordan.
Nice guy.
Talk to him online and stuff like that, but
they're both nice guys. That's what kind of makes it funny. It's like when you kind of like have interacted with both of them, you're like, oh, like this is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, Mike Sealski, my buddy Mike Sealski, tabbed it, and I give him credit. It's not reporting anyway. He calls it information brokers. Like they're being handed the information. Like it's not old school Bob Woodward.
Yeah, they're prodding and unlocking information. Yeah.
Getting multiple sources to confirm things. Although Bob Woodward took some hits from Bill Murray over the weekend. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, it's not. They're being handed the information by agents.
Yeah,
you know,
that's what it is now.
Yeah, settle down. Anyway.
And football is the one sport where it feels like you get it, like just covering baseball. You're getting the information from the player or the manager or the GM itself.
Yeah. And sometimes we get information as Howie spoke before the Super Bowl to us. He spoke out in Indianapolis. That's when you get clarification generally on certain things.
I've got an answer in baseball. You and I both know the answer to that. And I'm like, all right, that's what I need.
Yeah, but media feuds are silly, and I'm with you 100% on that. So ended up, you know, that was, well, what was that about? Stafford meeting with
I think it was who Stafford met with. Or like the Brady thing.
Yeah.
By the way, smart organizations do smart things. The Rams are a smart organization.
Yeah, they're a good organization. You know, I was kind of ripping the Rams because I'm not the biggest Sean McVay guy, as Zander knows. I don't think he's a bad coach. I just think people.
Les Snead is one of my favorite GMs on the planet.
Yeah, I think
them picks.
I think Les is really good, but it was really the Eagles' offensive line who said, you know, the Rams are real deal. Like they were, and this is the Eagles' offensive line. It's Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson.
The Eagles thought the Rams. Slice said it. He thought the Rams were their hurdle to go into the Super Bowl.
But them guys talking about their pass rush, I was like, oh, all right, you know, they were like their pass rush is legit.
Yeah, when I was talking to guys on the offensive line, I'm saying, hey, you know, you think you guys have a bigger, better, and smaller, and they're like, don't overlook that.
But, you know, they took advantage of their smaller and they ran, you know, what did Saquon have? 60, 50-yard runs against that team. That's no coincidence.
Yeah.
They can really get after the pass.
Here's your fun Rams stat of the day. Saquon Barkley had more 60-yard touchdown runs against the Rams than if you just count his stats against the Rams, the 60-yard touchdown runs, regular and postseason. That still would have led the league. That's crazy.
They got to find a better middle ground. But you know, for the most part, like the Eagles won the Super Bowl in an unconventional fashion. Let's be honest. Most teams are looking to go where the Rams are going with the big athletic pass rush versus stopping the run. And you got to find a better middle ground. They got to find a better middle
This
ground.
is what I'm curious about the Rams. I know they told Cooper Kupp they're going to trade him, but do you think Stafford convinces him, you know what, we got to keep this guy?
Maybe, you know, it depends with a player like that. I mean, he's not been the same since his, you know, we always talk about running backs and traffic and touches, and that'll be a big story next year because of how much Saquon touched it this year, because history is what history is. And when you touch as much as he does, usually you're not the same coming back. So that's going to be a big story. But with Cooper Kupp, he's not been the same guy since his Triple Crown year.
He had one of the best individual seasons ever.
Yeah. But
still the only receiver to get 2,000 yards in a season if you count the playoffs.
But he hasn't been the same since.
Yep.
How many times he touched the football that year? He caught 145 passes for 19.
He had 179 targets. No, sorry. Yeah, 179 catches if you count the playoffs.
So that's his year. 145. What a year. 145 for 1947, 16 touchdowns, won the Triple Crown, the
That is
so-called Triple
wild, man.
Crown.
10 years from now, we're going to look at Saquon's year and be like, how the heck did he do that?
Well, we already are. It's the
Yeah.
biggest rushing season in NFL history. But so 2022, the year he comes back, the next year, he only played 9 games.
Got hurt early, but he had a strong start.
Yeah, 75 catches. 2023 only played 12 games, 59 catches. 2024, last season, he only played 12 games again, 67. Not even close.
You know,
since that season.
It was funny because a couple people won the beat. I think you're one of them, John, that lasted this. But I always said, man, if Saquon gets hurt, they are so, you know what. And you're a Kenny Gainwell guy.
not. You know, they played well. Kansas City stopped them. Let's be honest. And the Eagles,
but they sold their soul to stop them.
All season, we were talking about, can the Eagles, you know, do it? And to their credit, they turned the switch on. Like, there were some ugly games in there, 65 yards passing. And we were all asking, they're all relevant questions. Sorry, Eagles fans. Even A.J. Brown was bringing it up. Jordan Mailata was bringing it up. Jalen Hurts was bringing it up.
Devontae Smith brought it up.
Devontae Smith brought it up. They were all relevant questions. They were questioning whether they could do it. To their credit, they did it. They did it against Washington, and they did it against the Chiefs.
My top 10 Jalen-isms, so that's what y'all wanted to see, huh? That would be number 2.
And that, you know, his passive-aggressive spike in the football, yes, that you know, but they deserved that. They deserved to spike the football. The only point is I'm trying to make they would have had to win a different way if Saquon got hurt. But could they have won that different way? Maybe. They were the best team.
I think they proved they could.
Yeah. They would have to win. They're not getting 150 rushing yards a week. They would have had to won a different way, but maybe they could have won. We'll never know.
I thought Washington was even though Saquon had a great game against them, Jalen showed, hey man, I'm still here.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It was one of those. It's one of those things like a lot of people like to bust on Jalen, and I'm not saying Eagles fans or Eagles media or anything like that, but you guys see the Commanders fans, Jaden Daniels that much better. I'm like, he might be at some point, but
hey, well, you can also be on. Jaden Daniels had a better fucking year than.
Well, he did. He did. But let's not act like, you know, Jaden Daniels had this great NFC Championship game. He also is a rookie.
Yeah, but Jalen's now building his career. Because, like, if you never return to the Super Bowl and you go in 22, people can look at that season. Oh, it was a one-hit wonder. Oh, can Jalen ever get back? Now you went in 22, you returned in 24 and 1. Now that changes the context of going in 22. I'm not saying that you're wrong about Jaden Daniels. I think he had a great year, but Jalen is building a really powerful career.
Look, if I had to pick quarterbacks that are going to win the Super Bowl, Jaden Daniels is on that list. Josh Allen's on that list. Lamar's on that list. Pryor's on that list. That's how I judge quarterback. Like, do I think you can win a Super Bowl? I think Jaden Daniels can win a Super Bowl, and I think it can be in Washington.
Yeah, I don't know why it's so hard for people that to be, you know, everything is not mutually exclusive. Jalen Hurts had a phenomenal. Let's talk about Nick Foles. He had a phenomenal NFC Championship game, had a phenomenal Super Bowl, won a Super Bowl, deservingly won a Super Bowl. That does not mean he had a better year than insert name, Jaden Daniels, a couple of other quarterbacks who had big years. Both of those things can be true.
Yeah,
and they are true.
This is how I judge the whole thing. Just remember, at the end of the day, the way Jalen Hurts keeps winning, and the way he plays in a lot of his playoff games, you're going to see him in Canton. You are.
He's on a trajectory. Certainly.
Absolutely.
Still, you know.
Like, if he gets another Super Bowl and keeps winning at this clip, he's winning at like a 700
well,
clip.
if he wins at this clip, he doesn't even need another Super Bowl,
he doesn't.
To be honest. You know, if you get another 5 years, say, at this winning clip, which if you're getting another 5 years at this win, you're probably going to win one anyway. But
I always joke. Everybody goes, why does Troy Aikman like Jalen Hurts so much? I said, because he's this generation's Troy Aikman.
A little bit.
It's a
Yeah.
great comp, man.
I mean, Troy showed up in the playoffs all the time.
Yeah, and look, I always go back to that quote that Jalen said earlier in the year. Me and John talked about it a lot on the show. Until you get got, or whatever the quote was, right? Like you never know until you get. But when that moment came, the opposite actually happened, where they did have a good passing game in the moments that they needed it.
Yeah, they had a tremendous passing game. But again, that's why I go to same thing with Saquon and the Giants. Like I've said it from day one, I will say it to the day I'm gone. For the New York Giants, Saquon Barkley made no sense. For the Philadelphia Eagles, he made all the sense in the world.
Right.
Both of those things can be true. Both of those things not only can be true, are true.
I just think Hard Knocks made it worse because of how it went down, and that's why no team will ever do off-season Hard Knocks again.
Nobody wants it.
Actually, Hard Knocks got their fix in on that year, but man, they cost themselves in the long term.
It sucks because I would watch Hard Knocks all season all the time. I loved it. I loved every single bit of that.
Yeah, it was a good that was a good. I'm not a big fan. I think it's run its course of the normal Hard Knocks, which was so interesting early when they first did it
because you never got that access.
Right.
Yeah. But now it's become, all right, you follow three guys. You follow the one guy who's a nobody and he's a good story, and you follow the guy who gets cut. And it's so formulaic. But that when they took you into the off season, because that's a lot of uncharted territory, and the editing was awful, but that's what they do. They tease. And the famous quote of if we pay Saquon Barkley, not that they offered him, and Joe Shane trying to talk his stupid owner like a child,
which is never a good idea.
Yeah.
By the way.
Well, you had to. Does anybody believe, even in Philadelphia, after watching the greatest rushing season of all time, that's what it was by definition? Does anyone believe if the New York Giants brought Saquon Barkley back that the New York Giants would have been in the Super Bowl?
No.
With Saquon Barkley? Of course not.
Not with that quarterback.
They're not ready. Daniel Jeremiah was talking about this during the combine when he's talking about the running back position. I saw the clip because I'm not watching that garbage, but I saw the clip and Daniel Jeremiah was trying to, and I give him credit, trying to elevate the conversation around running backs. It's like, look, if you're a good team, go draft a running back and go draft Genti if you're ready to win. If you're not ready to win, you're just wasting 3 years of the guy's career.
I know you, me, Jody, Zander, we've had this conversation 2 years ago about Bijan. That was one of the reasons I had to do a for and against. I said for him, because the Eagles could use a Bijan Robinson, and he would work for them.
Yeah. And the Eagles like Bijan.
They did.
They wouldn't have taken him at number 9.
I think, though, they ultimately made the right selection.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I think they did. But he was one of the outliers. He's a guy they would have considered jumping back up to get in the 20s. And that would have blown people's minds.
John, by the way, one of our boys is a free agent pass rusher.
Who's that?
Derek Barnett.
Oh, is he? Yeah. Derek's not coming back here.
So is Emmanuel Ogbah, who I wouldn't be surprised if I thought he was one of the ones that actually got along with Vic in Miami.
Yeah, Derek, I think Derek has had his fill of Philadelphia.
I've had my fill of Philadelphia, and I love Philadelphia.
Me too. Me too, Jeff.
There's certain players that, get shit on to a degree that they don't want to come back, and I think Derek's in that category.
Him and Nelson might be the two.
Yes, Nelson's in that category as well.
Yeah, Nelson definitely. That video still plays in my head rent free of the dude with the outside the burning building.
You still see, that is
a funny video.
That's
man.
One thing I do like about this current group. They have such thick skin. They all do.
Wow, some of them don't.
Oh, some of them, but a lot of them do.
Yeah, some of them don't.
A lot of the main guys do.
Well, some have figured it out. Lane has certainly figured it out, but that's a process, man. You got to go through. Brandon Graham is the best example of this. I mean, Brandon, there's a lot of revisionist history there. People wanted to run Brandon out of town. Jason Kelsey. I remember talking to Jason Kelsey. He thought he was cut, man. What the 2000? What year was that? I'd have to look it up, but
it might have been. Was it 13?
No, it was later than that.
15, maybe.
It might have been 15. Yeah, he thought he was out.
But my favorite is I never saw Brandon Graham laugh so hard when he saw me laugh. When he goes, "Earl Thomas over me, Earl Thomas."
Hey, Earl Thomas is going to the freaking Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
But it is funny, like how it would have worked out both ways.
Yeah. Jason Pierre-Paul, too. It was Earl Thomas and Jason Pierre-Paul, who was a very good player till he blew up his hand in fireworks.
I think the Jason Pierre-Paul debate ended with Brandon Graham, Zack, Tom Brady.
Well, Jason Pierre-Paul was big-time player. Big-time player. All three are. But Brandon, very rarely do people recover from what. And Brandon was getting cut. Not Jason thought he was getting cut. Brandon was getting cut for Travis Long. That was 100% happening. And Travis Long tore his ACL.
And then, what was that, during minicamp?
He tore it 2 years in a row, but the first year, it was the year that Chip was going to cut Brandon. And
John, refresh my memory. Travis Long was an Oregon guy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I it's been a while, but here's another one too. When Graham had his big 2016 season.
No, I got to correct myself. I'm just looking him up. Washington State. So he was
Washington State.
Pac-12 guy.
Oh yeah, he was a Pac-12 guy.
Yeah, Pac-12.
But I still remember
Chip loved him though.
In 16, I defended Graham to the death because he had like 85 pressures. Everybody's like, "That's not a stat." It's funny how things change. Now in 9 years, everybody loves pressures, but back then I was like the pressure guy because I played that position. And,
I was always the pressure guy because I've had that argument with Jody. How many times, Zander? 1,000,000 times.
I had football coaches that I'd be bummed I wouldn't get a sack. And they'd be like, you had like 5 pressures today. And that's when I first learned about pressures in high school. So.
Yeah, I mean, pressures are a lot of good things happen. And hey, it's one of those things. And the NFL hurts themselves because they pay guys on sacks. It doesn't make sense. It's like the football people don't value it that much. Not that they don't value it, but there's a lot of context to sacks. Chris Long talks about this all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe I got a sack because of a great interior push and I just ran into me, or did I, did I deserve that sack like he did in the NFC Championship game and didn't get the sack, but hits Case Keenum, pick 6, game over, stole the soul of the Vikings that day. That's Chris Long with a pressure. That's why
I love Myles Garrett, and I know the guy gets sacks like crazy, but you should see the pressures and QB hits he gets too.
Yeah, and that's it. That's a big deal, and that's coaches have been talking about it forever. But at the same time, then you get to who do they pay, and you get to the business end. You got to get sacks to get paid. Doesn't make sense.
This is where I think Howie would be salving or Myles Garrett. Those joint practices in 2023. Myles Garrett just wrecked it. He was a one-man wrecking.
I've never seen it. They couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
They couldn't do anything offensively.
You watch that offensive play, I'm like, no, I'm too busy watching Myles Garrett. Sorry.
John, what you said about sacks reminds me of the Pro Bowl too. Like people are like, oh, who cares about the Pro Bowl? I'm like, dude, the 5th-year options were like you made more money if you made certain amount of
another
Pro Bowls.
stupid NFL.
It's another stupid NFL rule, but that's why players care. So for all the people when it comes out, who cares? No, it does matter. These guys are making X amount of money.
There's incentives and contracts to make the Pro Bowl.
Now it's more meaningful because they don't play the game, and by not playing the game, you don't have as many guys bowing out, and you don't have as many alternates. So when you get named a Pro Bowler, it has a little bit more cachet now. So it's not as bad as it used to be. But like if you're especially a quarterback, none of the quarterbacks would ever go, and you get down to the fifth alternate.
Tyler Huntley's a Pro Bowler.
Yeah, Tyler Huntley, perfect example. Yeah, Tyler Huntley was a Pro Bowler because he was an alternate, 18th alternate or whatever.
Tyler Huntley is the best clickbait you can ever have if you're trying to get people to click on an article. So-and-so signs Pro Bowl quarterback. It's Tyler Huntley. And they're like, oh, it's clickbait. It's not wrong.
It's not wrong. All right, wait. While we went down this road, Jeff, I know we've been on way long. I want to let you go, but can we squash this? Because I saw this floating around the timeline over the weekend. Colin Cowherd, I guess, suggested the Eagles can trade A.J. Brown if they want to get Myles Garrett.
They ain't trading A.J. Brown.
I mean, wait. Can we just add some context to this?
Colin Cowherd.
I get it. I get where he's coming from in the sense
Colin Cowherd don't even know who's the 11 players on the Eagles offense.
I know. You're a running football team. You're going to have to give up good players, a 32 pick. I get it. This guy, we're damn near undefeated when A.J. Brown's on the field. He's 27
not damn undefeated. They were undefeated.
They were undefeated.
Right, this year they were. He's 27 years old. He's got 3 straight all-pros, and we're talking about trading this guy. I mean, come on.
There's
Zander, I'll give you one more ridiculous than that. Patriots beat writers actually write an article thinking they could get A.J. Brown. I was laughing.
That's happening a lot because I guess he likes Mike Vrabel.
Jalen Hurts, when Jalen Hurts, there is some context to that. When Jalen Hurts finished with A.J. Brown, they're undefeated. They were undefeated. They lost, of course, in Washington when Jalen got knocked out 6 minutes into the game.
Oh, when the Eagles already were about to score 14.
Yeah, and they were ahead by 14. Well, actually, Kenny Pickett finished that drive, but they were ahead 14-0 with a touchdown throw to A.J. Brown, by the way, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
So yeah, when AJ's on the field, they're pretty good.
That was one inside the locker room thing I really enjoyed when after that game they lost to Washington. The Eagles, there were multiple players on that team that really thought they were going to score 50 off the Commanders that day.
Now, and I'm not talking because of Colin Cowherd. I can see the Eagles trading A.J. Brown. I'm talking about 5%, 10%, less than 10%, for the reasons that some have brought up, that they're a running team anyway. Who cares? He is vocal at times when he probably shouldn't be vocal at times.
He's an interesting guy. I'll just say that.
I love the guy.
I don't even view it like that anymore. If someone wants to be vocal about how to make your football team better, why do we view that as such a bad thing? And I don't know. It's the diva tag. It's all somebody wants to be great. That's what great players want. They want to be great.
I've been trying to fight that fight for there's not a bigger A.J. Brown fan in this town than me.
You're a huge A.J. Brown guy.
Yes, you are. But you have good context. I think some of the stories you've given on A.J. Brown have
you know what? A.J. and me, it's like he's giving me great answers. He's giving me crappy answers. He gave me a crappy answer.
Well, if cameras are around, he's going to give you crappy answers.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
they're not, he's going to give you good answers.
Yeah.
But, however, and I'm with you 100%, Zander. I'm like, this guy works his ass off. He's but at the same time, you see the controversy it creates. So I think the Eagles may look at it a little bit differently. At times, it creates a time. People run with this bullshit. The gossip of him and Jalen Hurts' relationship, all the other bullshit that people have run with.
Didn't they prove this year they can overcome that? Didn't they prove this year that gossip is only outside the room and it didn't permeate and throw off a season? I mean, it's clear that it happened. A.J. Brown on the podcast said after the season, yeah, we had moments where we had to talk things out, but they won a Super Bowl. So it didn't derail the season. So having that narrative, John, which I don't disagree with, or I don't dismiss.
I'm talking from the team perspective, not that they believe it, that they just don't want to deal with it.
I think it's. I don't know.
I'm not saying it. Obviously, it didn't cost them. I think it's ludicrous. I say it all the time that people think anywhere in life, because when you're talking about an NFL team, you're talking about 53 players. You're talking about 17 practice squad guys with the international, couple guys on injury reserve. So anytime you're talking about 75 to 80 people, that they all get along at all moments. I think at the base level of common sense, that is the stupidest narrative in the history of mankind. From Super Bowl winner down to the worst team in the NFL. Nobody's getting along every moment of every day. Think about your own life just going to work. If you work in an office, are you always happy with everybody?
Yeah, right.
No.
It's
I've been on
absurd.
teams. I've been on basketball teams with 12 people. I ain't talked to all of them. It's the
Yeah,
way
but
it is.
It's absurd
Dude,
that
if you don't
everybody
want a player
thinks
that wants to be better, though, then go sign a bunch of stiffs. I mean, that's the alternative.
I'm with you. I'm just saying
I let AJ's game speak for itself, just like I used to let
if you
T.O.'s
want
game speak
if you
for itself.
want Myles Garrett again, you got to give up something significant to get Myles Garrett.
I tell you who I'd be asking for if I'm the Cleveland Browns.
Who?
Cooper DeJean. That's the
fuck
start.
no. I'm sorry. I get it. Everybody wants this player. I'm starting to get the shiny object syndrome, though. We just won a Super Bowl. Why are we going to take a player that was valuable to this football team and get rid of him to get a new shiny object?
Because
The
you have to
grass
give up
isn't
something to
always
get
greener
something.
on the other side.
As a baseball writer, I tell people this all the time. They're not giving you your players for free. This isn't Madden.
I know, but then, but my point is, Jeff, I'm willing to pass on the player if the asking.
Well, yeah,
price
that's
is
how
that
I
big.
am. But I also understand where the team's coming from because you do need to replenish the pass rush that got you a Super Bowl.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
I'm okay for people that say that's too much. I want to go.
Yeah, I'm more than
direction.
okay with that.
But
The-
to the people who think you're getting them for Bryce Huff and his contract, I mean,
No, I know that's
no
not
way.
happening.
You know,
I know that's not happening.
those are the unrealistic people.
Wait,
Jeff is
John, you'll
talking
love
about.
this. I saw someone spin this and say, well, guys, if you look at Bryce Huff, he actually fits what Jim Schwartz wants to do in Cleveland. They might want him. And I'm like, guys, stop. Guys, stop. They're not.
I
trading
hope
Myles
people
Garrett
realize
for fucking
this
Bryce
is how
Huff.
much. This is how highly the Eagles saw the Price up. They couldn't even play him in the Super Bowl.
I know.
Yeah,
We started
you know, and it's the contract more than anything. You know, there's some validity to it. Look,
that's an immovable deal this year, by the way.
Yeah, I agree. Jim Schwartz is a different scheme, you know, aggressive, and in theory, Bryce Huff would fit that better.
Yeah,
I agree with that part of it. They're not taking that damn contract.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're getting rid of Myles Garrett to get rid of the contract too.
Yeah, but even if a player fits your system, you're not just going to trade the best player in the world potentially.
No,
for a guy.
But
who's mediocre
I'm talking
and
about
fits your system.
if you're trading Myles Garrett, part of it is Jeff just said. Part of it is to get younger and more cost effective. Mainly more cost effective, not take on a giant contract in return from a much lesser player.
See, if I was Cleveland, I would. If I was Andrew Berry, I would be such a jerk to any team who wants him. Be like, all right, here's the catch in all this, because I am a jerk. You have to take on Deshaun Watson's contract to get Myles.
There you go.
You have to do it. That is a non-starter with me. You have to do it.
Jeff Kerr getting
Deshaun,
creative.
I wonder if Deshaun would consider the Eagles.
Yeah, all of a sudden, right. By the way, John, people still like to argue with us about the whole Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson thing.
I get it all the time. I made it up. Blah blah. I get it all the time.
They were stuck with Jalen.
If they only knew some of the backstories of what their favorite team do and what they think, you know,
they don't want to admit the backstories.
By the way, did you hear Saquon finally admit that he was very close to signing? I don't know. It's probably
he finally admitted it. Yes,
he's very close to signing with the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
The original plan. Can I say this?
I think you can. I think it's fair now. It's been a year.
The original plan was to re-sign DeAndre Swift.
I thought that, yeah.
And it was ironic. They were both fighting for the same player, Chicago, and same players.
Chicago overpaid DeAndre Swift too.
Yeah. DeAndre wanted no part of being back here.
No, John, you and I knew that on locker cleanout day.
It's
That's
hilarious.
interesting. Was it team related or was it, because he grew up here? Obviously,
Offense related.
Offense related,
He
yeah.
thought they didn't get him involved in the passing game, which they didn't. He's
No,
a very
and he
good
was
pass
right.
receiver.
He had no. I did not disagree with anything he said when he was telling people this.
Yeah. No, he's a very good receiver. The Eagles didn't use that. We talked about it ad nauseum. It's true. They didn't use receivers.
I mean, the stories that I've heard and know with Saquon, like how he came to the Eagles, everybody's like, "Oh, this is in the works." I'm like, it wasn't though. It was more him and his camp were interested, but he wasn't sure they were.
Yeah.
Well, it all worked out. That's why, John, me and you talked about plan B, C, and D earlier in the show, man. Those are sometimes more important than plan A. Let's be real.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hey, you know what? That's how you win championships. I mean, really, it's, Jalen Hurts is a prime example of that.
Yeah. Wasn't the original plan either. But
and look, I was against the whole when they were interested in Deshaun. I'm like, why would you want Deshaun Watson? Why would you want that baggage?
At the time, everyone was assuming he was still a very young player. He was one of the best quarterbacks in football.
Dude, when he took the Texans to the playoffs, he was a top 4, top 5 quarterback in the NFL.
I mean, everybody was interested in him. Now, the whole thing about that is Deshaun and Jalen Hurts were friends. They grew to be friends. They used to work under the same quarterback coach, Quincy Avery. So they met each other. They became friends, very close friends. And the reason Deshaun didn't want to consider the Eagles is because he didn't want to take the opportunity away from his friend, who, like Deshaun, African-American quarterbacks don't get a lot of chances. Even back then, the thought was, I'm not going to take this opportunity away from my friend. Now, if nobody else wanted Deshaun Watson at the time, he would have considered the Eagles, but that wasn't the case. We do
take the whole African-American black quarterback thing for granted here because this franchise has the most starts with those quarterbacks, and they were giving them the opportunities way before this was even a thing.
So that's the reason why Deshaun would not consider the Eagles. That it wasn't about not wanting to play in Philadelphia. It wasn't about. However, even if he did consider, once it got to the point it got in Cleveland, because remember, it was a done deal. He was going to Atlanta, and all of a sudden, Cleveland comes in with this ridiculous contract,
fully guaranteed.
Yeah. And the Eagles, even if they were involved, they would have not given out that contract.
Yeah, no.
So it wouldn't have worked out.
That was very frowned upon around the league when that happened.
But the only part that bothers me is this bullshit that we're making up. The Eagles are interested in Deshaun Watson.
They were.
Come on.
Russ didn't want to come here.
Turned out for the better, though. So
and Russell Wilson as well. Yeah, Russell.
Plan B, plan C.
Dodge the bullet there. Russell Wilson has pretty much not been good since he left Seattle.
No doubt. Jeff Kerr, thanks for joining in today, brother. We appreciate it. Long, extended segment here. We always appreciate the time that you give us on Birds 365. Great stuff today, brother. And we'll talk to you again next week as we get
happy vacation. No, he's going to Disney next week.
I'll be at this time. I'm trying to remember what park I'll be in. I think I might be on the Slinky Dog ride or Rise of the Resistance at this time.
All right.
So Jeff, we're a week. Next Monday is the 10th, so you won't be in then. Free agency starts the 12th. So the next time we talk to you, we'll have some free agency moves to talk about, Jeff. I'm looking forward to that.
We will. When are you going to spring training, too?
I'm going the 13th. Everybody goes, how can you miss free agency? I'm like, missing free agency. Got to take some time off sometime.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, brother. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for joining in today, and we'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks, all right?
Yep, sounds great. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks, bud.
All right, there's Jeff Kerr joining us on Birds 365. Great stuff from Jeff Kerr joining in on the show. Boy, we went long. I looked up at the clock. I'm like, holy shit, 9:43. But